the third evening conversation, which will be the last one in this building. Tomorrow, actually, it won't be in the evening, it will be in the afternoon, which starts earlier with the circus events, and it would be more informal discussion with you all. So, over the past days, we've explored how architectural practices changing from new professional roles and responsibilities to the transformation of materials, crafts, labor, and construction processes. And tonight, we take a step back to look at the question of scale. So, across Europe and beyond, we see a growing number of inspiring initiatives from local experiments in circular construction to new ways of designing is bio and geo-based materials. But yet, despite the promise and the enthusiasm around these projects, these approaches often remain fragmented or small in scope, let's say, while the dominant modes of industrial construction and its destructive material regime continue to shape our built environments. So, how can we scale up sustainable practices? This is the main question today. What political, economic, and technical barriers stand in the way of this transformation? And what kind of knowledge, governance, and collaboration are needed to make a systemic change possible? So to discuss these questions, quite big, we are joined tonight by three guests who each approach this issue, I think, from a distinct perspective. So first, Alexia Ménec, who is architect at Karbon in Brussels and co-author of What About Vernacular, a book published in 2023 that explores vernacular knowledge, material reuse, and territorial approaches to sustainable design in the rural eastern United States. Elsa Marshall, architect with part since 2020, I think, of the team of the Bouwmeester met architect, chief architect of Brussels. And the Bouwmeester, she will explain it, but being is this actually written institution today actively involved in shaping architecture and urban policies in Brussels. And the third one, Guillaume Aber, professor at ETH Zurich, where he holds the chair of sustainable construction. He leads a group of scientists, engineers, and architects who focuses on the ecological impact of construction materials and the soil system and the transition towards sustainable building practices. So together we'll reflect on how these different perspectives can help us understand the barriers and the actions needed to scale up sustainability across territories. And now I invite each speaker, as I did it until now, to introduce his or her work before launching the conversation. And first one, Alexia. And yeah, so it's like.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Many thanks to Jean and Henri as well for the invitation at this table. I am Alexia Ménec. I am architect and member of the Karbon team for the past 5 years. Karbon is an architecture and urbanism office based in Brussels. And founded around 15 years ago. Today, the team includes architects, around 20 architects and urbanists, and we mainly work on projects based in Brussels and surrounding areas. Since the beginning, Karbon has been working on projects of very different scales in various types, from individual houses to social housing renovation, co-housing facilities as well as experimental research projects like mock-up, for example, but also public studies, public planification, or public projects. Every project takes place in different contexts, rural or urban settings, and even it's sometimes challenging for the team. We really believe in the value of working on projects at different scales and different contexts because each one inspires the others. Having this mix, this diversity of projects, naturally brings up lots of questions, and it also helps us to have like an overview or a more complex view of what is the world of the construction, at least in Belgium, obviously. For each of our projects, we try to respond in the most sustainable way possible. Of course, the answer is never the same because there is not a magic formula. But because we must first adapt to the context. When I say sustainable, I want to consider all the different aspects to be sustainable, because it's not just about using bio-based materials like earth or cork or lime and hemp block, for example, but mostly about working with what already exists, and do conservation, renovation, reparation, or reuse. And sometimes it also means doing nothing. Also, sustainable architecture can be a project using little energy or low-tech projects, but it's also about robust architecture or architecture with a simple and minimalist design, which helps them to fit culturally into their context, and are designed to pass over the long term, to last over the long term. And finally, sorry, the definition of sustainable architecture is quite long, but it's also about, we think it's also about bring a social dimension, for example, by addressing questions of inclusivity.
Hello, everyone. Also, thank you for the invitation. I am Elsa Marchal, and I am an architect by education, and I work for several years, as Jean mentioned, for the bouwmeester maître architect, or most commonly called the BMA. I'm going to use BMA because it's shorter and quicker. And so the BMA is a person. It was Christian Boret for 10 years. Now we are still waiting for the next bouwmeester. And he works with a whole team of architects, of urbanists, landscape architects. We are 15 in the team, and I'm part of it. You can see me next to the bouwmeester. The bouwmeester is not an office of architecture. It's a public and regional administration that has as mission to promote the quality of urban development in Brussels. So to do so, we developed different tools to raise that quality. We have the research by design team. We have the design review that you can ask when you hand in a building permit. We also have the labels, but maybe the most known tool that we have are the organization of competition. So we organize competition for public and private clients in Brussels on a project of architecture, public space, master plan, urbanism, and so on. So we have tools to raise the quality, but we also have topics that we put on the agenda and that we promote through our tools. And one of these topics is circular architecture, but we could enlarge it to sustainable architecture. And I wanted to show you on this slide 4 projects that we have accompanied, for which we organize a competition, who address the question of sustainability in different ways. As Alexia explained also, there is not one way to be sustainable. There are various ways. Maybe the first one, Yes, the first on the top left is a project by for Zinneke. The architects who won the project were West and Rotor. The project was an experimentation on the reuse of building materials, but also on insulation, on techniques. And when the building was finished, it was quite pioneer at the time. It's already like quite an old project, you could say. Next to it, you have the multi-tower in the center of Brussels, made by Konix and Rotor also. And there they questioned sustainability through the reuse of the building structure. So they reused the whole structure of the building for the new project. What is also quite particular to this project is that the client is private. And so we see that the private sector also is willing to be part of this growing movement of sustainable architecture in Brussels. Down left, you have the project for the school Egid van Bokhoven, made by the architects B2AI. And the idea first was to renovate this brewery into housing, but the existing buildings with the spatial quality of the old brewery wasn't adapted to housing, and so they at the end changed the program and they put a school instead of the housing. So it's also a sustainable way to try not to fit the program into the building, but to think what can the building what is the capacity of the building in terms of programs and stuff and so on. And last one is being sustainable by oversizing the building. So it's a new building project for a car shop. And we know what the car industry is changing and evaluating. And so the project is thought to be future-proofed and can evolve in the future to have other programs. And so you see, like, Alexia was explaining maybe the answers, and I'm also showing some answer of projects. But what we do with the BMA is we are asking, we are writing the question of the sustainability in the contracts with the client. And so sustainability can be diverse. And so as we are working for several years now on this project, on this topic of reuse and circular architecture, we wanted to make a book to showcase actually through real project that we have accompanied with a BMA in Brussels, this growing movement of circular architecture in Brussels. And that is not something small, but is quite being mainstreamed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it's also a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I think I will be more from the academic side. I mean, university, and so where we would, I think, would scale up the sustainable practices. I think at least I would like to share with you a bit these two sides of thinking. There's one way you need to put it like this: empower the professionals, so give the possibility of the professional to be able to use regenerative materials in general. And the other side
is that, once you have plenty of professional, being architect, being a building material producer, being industry in general, they need to find project. And so there's also a question of how do you promote from the demand side and how do you raise awareness? And so on that, I think what we have been doing at ETH, one side is, I think what you're doing now is also a little bit this education. You need to so we have a education for professional now since 5 years. It's 5 weeks program. You have 18 participants per year. It's great. 18 participants, but then not like 5 is still so it's nice, but it will not make it will not go mainstream. So I think since this year we have also launched the online practice to say, okay, it's a massive online course where you can also learn these regenerative materials. It has launched in September, so there's already 870 participants. So it's like, okay, scaling up, not sustainable practices, but at least scaling up education program. And from the other side, also we're also working with the industry. So I think it's the same in every country. In Switzerland, we are able to be financially, so to finance the research. Where you have federal government of public funds, you could say, but you can fund the industry if they are working with a professional. So we are working with, let's say, a very conventional on construction. Eberhard is a demolition company, basically, that wants to work with earth material. And so we are working with them on how, in their really industrial practice, how they can scale up or what are the challenges that they are facing to put such material in their way and to be economically viable, basically. And the other side, I think, from the academy is also to say, okay, you're developing research, but you have to push it in the practice. And so there's a certain question of how do you put to transform research into practice, which goes at least from the technical university to startup. So 2 of them mainly working with Earth at the moment in Switzerland. One is throwing with robots, impact build. You can go online if you want. And Oxara is more the alternative compete, let's say. So that's on the empowering the professional to use these materials. And the other side is to raise awareness. So raising awareness is a bit of, I don't know how efficient it is, but one way is for sure to have exhibition or architecture competition. It's looking at the project that you were showing. So we have this Materia Award. It started with Domenico Zamile, don't know when, 10 years ago, at least, the Terra Award and the Fibra Award, or the Terra Fibra, and now it's the Materia Award. BC Architects was recognized. The Karbon architecture was also recognized in some of these awards. It's, of course, it's a small community. You could say they're growing, but I think there's a certain way of thinking. That's what we think is valuable in terms of construction, and that's what we recognize in the world, and it creates I think it creates confidence also because you've been showing cook. It's done, it exists, and it is quality. The other thing that we do that we have launched is Atlas of Regenerative Material. Is the same logic, but is more online. So to say, okay, there's now you can see project, you can see actors around you, and say, bro, you have people that have actually working with it. So it's not completely like one single idealist person. You have plenty of people around. You have plenty of buildings. And the last thing, which I think is the very exhausting side, and not necessarily, I don't know if we've been discussed that afterwards, but not necessarily the most very slowly aspect, but maybe probably still needed, is the question of we need to have standards and normalization. And so typically now there's, at least in Switzerland, we have a new standard for embodied emissions in construction. It was a long process. I think it's good in art, and in the other way, then you have all the conventional industry that is basically managing to do exactly the same, except fitting the standards. So there's a bit of a rebound effect on that. You also have working now on Swiss standard for earth construction. It's also kind of, is it useful or not? I don't know how much we can discuss that, but you have standards that are like this since 50 years at least. In Germany, then France, and Switzerland, they don't have it. So it's like, oh, we do a standard, and then you taking 20 years again to do a standard, although it has been there 50 years ago in the neighboring country. But it's probably something that still is needed. Yes, and that's it. Mm.
Good. Thank you very much for these introductions. So, thanks to the advice of one of you, I try innovate this evening. I will try to welcome your questions earlier, and but if you will start, and but then just whenever you have question, raise your hand, and I will bring you a microphone. I would like to start with you, Ian. So you and your team you are involved in the research, any research projects to building new knowledge around sustainability, let's say in the field of architecture and building sector. So what are, according to you, the kind of knowledge or research areas that are missing today to accelerate or better implement the transition, let's say, or the transition?
I mean, to be very honestly, the difficulty we have now is that you have research and you also have somehow parties, you would say, founders that wants to come up, and what they like is innovation. They will not find something that has been there for 50 years. And as a researchers, our mission is also to create new knowledge. So in a way, I think that's, like you create new knowledge to a job. Do we need new knowledge and do we need innovation to really scale up sustainable practices? And that's I think that the difficulty that I see now is how do you show that there is innovation of doing the simple, robust architecture, that's things that knows. And I see this is the difficulty, because the easiest funding or because there is a tendency to create something new, basically. And I think we don't need something new in terms of real research. We need to present differently the existing things in new. Because you often point out that the materials, technologies, construction systems, and knowledge are already here to accelerate the transition and through especially renovations. And so maybe it's also a lead to escape this innovation quest, let's say. No? Yes, it's objective, and I think that we need to be very like, what is the right step that allows effectively these materials or this practice to be easier to be used without moving too far in somehow and brand new, groundbreaking, new innovation, which will take 10 years to be implemented anyway. And I think we don't have these 10 years of round of new innovation so much. I think there's it is careful what is the necessary addition, but it's not too much. So. Your question.
It's from my side, I didn't expect the issues of the word innovation, but it makes sense, and maybe it makes sense also for you, Elsa. I wonder at the BNA, when you implement a new product, I imagine that many clients or people are coming with this for something new and maybe or for innovation into products. So how do you deal with the need to do with the existing, to do with, let's say, there are common techniques if when both client is just searching for a new compressive building block?
I think not everyone is looking for something new or innovative. Sometimes they are really happy with a very extended project, and we have to work a lot to make it more to have more quality, to have more challenge, to have more ambition. So sometimes the other way around. But I think also in the process of how we do the competition, we always ask the question. We always raise the question of sustainability. And the way it works is we ask some design proposal to the different teams that are selected, and we have some criteria to also evaluate those proposals. And one of them, we have 4 who are always the same. One of them is what is the strategy to help. Is a strategy to help to lower the impact of the carbon, to help the challenge the heat island effect and so on. So we do not always need to be innovative, but we want the project to give an answer on this. And in the project, in the competition, every project is going to be unique because the site is different, because the context is different, because the question is different, the program, the client. And so we always have an unique answer, as I would say. So I don't think it's really a matter of being always having something new, because it's always going to be new, and it's not really a question we have right now, but could be.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. And Alexia, I wonder if our also Karbon is dealing with maybe sometimes barriers in the way that Karbon is engaged in a very radical sustainability in a way, or at least is willing to implement such projects, and how this works with, especially when you're working on a project, you have the constraints of economical constraints, you have the will of the client, you have the project itself. So what is, according to you and the projects you're working on, the main barriers or regarding the knowledge or the socio-ecological, socio-economical system within which you are implementing the product, which are making it sometimes a bit difficult to go as far as you would like to go or places?
Yeah, we have like a schema, like diagram pyramid, which shows like the 5 key ideas to have a sustainable project or a project with resource efficient. And the first step is the client, is the client's demand, in the sense that the clients have a big responsibility in the construction. And if the demand of the clients isn't realistic, isn't for a project unnecessary or too big or unreasonable, you can do like a sustainable project, because even if you have a sustainable conception, it could never be sustainable, because every project had a negative footprint. So we always start a project with think about the client's demand to before to do anything else. It's the first step. And then, we have the responsibility of.
He has no risk to put money in your company because you have a patent. And so it means because you're innovative and this patent is kind of seems to be protected, it's not connected. It's just a way of saying it's protected, but it's legally you could, if you go all the way, you say, "Hey, I have this patent." So somehow it's a way of for the investors to put money into your company because you have a patent. And then if you have no patent, the investors, the big investors, seems like, so it's not really secure. You're saying there's no patent. So we need to have a patent on anything just to look like you're secured. But it doesn't help you to scale it would be rather the opposite. If you want to scale the product, the process is actually without patent. But if you want to put money in your company with big investors, then you kind of need a patent. So, but the rules, the rule of the guide of good practice, somehow this is the opposite of a patent. You could say you would describe how to use and how to, and this goes more, I think, towards standards in a way. It's like you have a guide of good practice where you say if you put this material in such a way, then it will stand, basically. And then the investors, not the investors, the insurance can be secure because you have a guide. So which is the kind of the standard, but it is not. So I all to say I'm not convinced the patent is the scaling approach. And even for the industry, I mean, to take the example of we are working with an industry, so they want to typically they want to produce earth construction from excavation materials, and so they wash because they're rubber producers. They wash, then they have the mud. The mud they want to use it as a base, a clay product, basically. And for them, typically, if what they would love to have is something that is complex enough so that it cannot be copied, basically, but that you don't need a patent actually. Because if you really need a patent, it means your thing is super simple because you want to protect it legal. If you have something that is actually complex enough to be produced in your production process, that's well, you did a bit of that and did a bit of that, and I mix and I wait 2 seconds and then I remix the game. No one will be able to copy. Then you don't need the patent. And so the industry is much more in this logic. Like cement. I mean, all this. There's no patent on all these things. So it's complex enough to be produced, so that no one is copying it. And the industry is quite interested by that. And so somehow, and in the, I would say, in the academic, what you can provide is typically the knowledge enough so that they go in a certain level of details where they manage to handle their material, while before they were a bit lost somehow. And then it's simple for them, but it's not obvious to do the same. We are not sure. Quickly answer your question, but
no, the patent is more to unlock financing, but I'm also thinking that we should think about systems for the builders to not have to think, so that they could just receive the material and have a leaflet or a book. It's extremely easy, and then the architect like Alexia wouldn't have to show up on the site meeting for 3 times a week to show solutions. It would just, and that's where maybe I was thinking about patenting a system rather than.
This is you're producing a product like a building system, and then you're selling this building system, which is it's one way. First,
The knowledge of, because all these huge construction sites like Karbon is doing, they have huge problems of logistics, and sometimes they don't have the space to install a place to construct earth bricks on site. So to deliver huge amount of records and stuff like that, where there's a system to implement.
But maybe that's there's a question, because we are not going to make this systemic change and is upscaling only with the practice or with some laws. We also need to change the whole logistic chain, and we have to have more places to store reuse materials for new buildings. If that becomes a norm, then we need really places in the city to store this kind of materials. But I was also thinking that it raised the question of the responsibility at the end. Because we could say what Alexia was explaining at the project of Karbon in General Jacques, to keep all the plaster, it's just about a finition. There is nothing about structural. It's something really small, actually, but it represents a lot of material. And so we should also try to maybe explain and raise awareness through all the projects that we did, where the responsibility was taken by the public sector to do so. Like in the project of Zinneke, I showed you, they reused insulation that was already in some other site. But when you have materials that was already used, and it loses all his specific characteristics, and so you cannot have the lambda anymore of the insulation. And so the material lose everything it has, but the client said, no, we're going to still use it. We're going to reuse also some techniques. And he took that responsibility. And at the end, when the people came to see if the project and the whole techniques were working, it did. And they had some certification, but it's also about the budget, about the responsibility, about the insurance. And so I think there is a whole system that we have to question also. And I thought the answer is really rather precious. Yes,
It's about the
raised like questions
force-
that
the locked in helper forcing the logistics to be.
that could be something
If there was a rotor within the city in every
neighborhood.
and in every neighborhood, it would be much easier.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a question of logistics, but also even broader. So it's political context, and because we are talking this evening of scaling up, so we are seeing a rising trend. If we are today, this discussion in facing a dramatic Greek backlash, even socio-environmental backlash, European scale of this, and even a larger scale. So we see environmental policies maybe going backward, not but maybe bringing this is helping to scale up, let's say. So sometimes it's also a question of the political dimension of our role as architects, and even bringing sometimes some activism. So is, I mean, wide, large definition of the term of activism. But through your different positions as a researcher here, working on standards, or as an architect with Karbon, or even EC or at the DNA, do you engage sometimes? And if yes, how and with what kind of conclusions with politicians or major institutions? How do you see your you talked about some, you shown us some publications, for example, with BMA, and how do you fight, let's say, to find a way to bring back to the agenda ecological issues, and I mean on a wide scope, also social ecological issues, but how do we, because we all are working or discussing today and wishing that this symbol thing is getting happening, but this is clearly not what's going on outside, I would say, if we take about a picture. So again, my question, how do you engage with this political dimension? And maybe it's not, you take this thing that it's not the role for the people that are doing so, but it's a way maybe also as students and officers around in the room, it's not a question. So yeah.
I can try to answer it. I think it's quite a complicated situation right now, also in Brussels. It's more than over a year we don't have any government, so there are a lot of things that are at stake. So to be with politics and try to promote some projects is pretty difficult. A lot of projects are being stopped because there is no government, so no budget, nothing. So that's already a first crisis in Brussels right now. But I'm sometimes a little bit scared about this idea of activism. So I love. I think that it is amazing and it has to exist, but we sometimes rely too much on the civil society, on the architects who are gonna work for free or who are doing stuff for the public authority at the end. So when Alexia is explaining that she is going to go every day on site to explain how it works, that's quite often. Yeah, we are part of that. We are taking part of the education of the construction sector. We are as you are that architects. We demand a lot of skills to you, and we are not trained for that. We are not paid for that. So it's always like. The idea of activism or participation is really important and is needed, but you have to consider that those people are working or helping the civil society and in the public system. So yes.
Guillaume, for example, you said that you participated in the implementation of this EU standard. So in this condition, you've tried to change your role or how, as a researcher, you came with this role or within your team? Was it a question around?
This is, I mean, for me, so I would formulate it in a way that I think actually, yeah, that you have to, what is iron to show adapting the discourse or this input depending on the different actors that we have. And I think it's so in Zurich, we have a government. But the way it works is that there's a city that has a high power and is extreme, not extreme left, but is left ecologist organization. There's the city, and then the canton of Zurich is extreme right conservative. And then there's the federal government, which is extreme right, but less, still, let's be right. And so you have these different level, and then also I think a bit the same. Maybe there's Brussels, what is differently, but there's a huge actor that is outside, which is the huge finance. So we have let's say Swiss bank, like UBS, which basically owns half of the betting stock of Switzerland, and is an actor. I mean, I would say a bit the same as Brussels, as like you have this European Commission, or you have like other actors that are not in the political systems, but are usually influential. And so for me, it's like, okay, I'm discussing with the city of Zurich, I'm discussing with the sustainable construction team of the city of Zurich. And there's like, okay, we're discussing together, how do we adapt the standards, and how do we calculate this and the database, and this is the comfort zone. But then you still have to discuss with the canton and to the other actors. And I think there it's not a question of like, how do you calculate or how important it is, but you also have to understand what is, I feel, meets the age. But I feel that everyone is in there, they have a role to play and they have a certain margin of action. And of course, you would like that the canton is taking a huge position, or that the bank, the UBS, is suddenly saying we don't build anymore and we just do reuse. And you would like to have that, but you have to. I feel that we have to understand what is their position, and what is the thing that they can do within their margin of action, which is maybe limiting the capacity. Is not so much activist in the wedding. I agree, but still is like so. What I realized is that typically the portfolio managers, like the one that are holding all the building stock of Switzerland, they don't know really what their building is. They would like to do good things. Usually, it's not that they are against, like they would not go back, but they really don't know actually to what is a sustainable building. How do you do this? And they need to have some examples. So already, that's why we did this atlas of thinking. You already show them, look, this is a very conventional building. It has been built by the same big actors as you, but it is with strawberries, or you have reused all the installation in. So, and then they would feel much more confident. But they need, yes. Well, all to say that maybe the activism is to be able to understand the position of the others and try to see what this person needs to really move. And it might not be, and the same for the extreme right person of the canton. They want to have job in a way. So if you start to say, you finance the circularity because you finance your local not possible to be outsourced job or in the canton of Zurich, and so you're financing the local economy. Maybe they will be for it, but they will not be for the environment. They will be for because they say it's a Swiss local job. It's great, and that's a good argument. And why not? So you have to adapt to each actors. But that's a soft thing. Soft aphorism.
It's good. And I'm also thinking about the discussion we had, a book you're preparing, which is the bringing the idea that it's not only sustainability and for saving the planet, but another key argument in favor of bio-based and geo-based materials and sustainable architecture is also the fact that it can heal people, and so healing architecture is also a way to present architecture not only the question of sustainability, but also its more direct impact in the bodies of the people inhabiting or with their architecture. So it's also another way to adapt the discourse. Regarding the time, is there one last question, remark, comment, critics? Okay, so as past 7, we will earlier, and tomorrow, so we meet earlier. So, at 4. Follow the discussion, but in a very different setting and depends, circumstance. I hope you enjoyed this evening conversations, and thank you very much.